Part 2. Echoes from the Pines. The trail back into Ren Hollow felt different the second time. Not just because I was walking it after sunset, but because the forest knew me now. The first time, I was a stranger. Now, I was something else. The pines stood taller. Closer. Their trunks forming warped silhouettes like the crooked limbs of some dead giant petrified mid-reach. I moved slower, every footstep deliberate, breath tight in my chest. I'd brought a body cam, a sidearm, and a shoulder-mounted lantern, but even fully kitted out, I didn't feel like a hunter. I felt like prey. As I crossed the rusted sign at the edge of Ren Hollow, the wind died. And something started laughing. Not from a specific direction. It came from everywhere at once, drifting between the broken buildings like a fog made of sound. High-pitched, too sharp, like someone giggling into a broken speaker. I gritted my teeth, hit record, and walked toward the chapel. It was waiting. Same as before, tall, jagged, windows bricked over. Only this time, the door wasn't open. It was gone. The entrance was a black, yawning mouth in the stone wall. No frame. No hinges. Just an absence where a door should have been. My lantern flickered. I swore under my breath, steadied it, and crossed the threshold. Inside, it was the same. And it was not the same. The pews were still there, but twisted now, elongated, warped like they'd been melted and reformed by something with no sense of symmetry. The walls bled sap. Thick black veins pulsing under the stone like arteries too close to the surface. And at the front, the statue was gone. In its place stood a figure. He was tall. Too tall. 7 feet, maybe 8, wrapped in burlap robes soaked with pine needles and moss. His face was covered by a wooden mask carved into a grotesque grin, with wide, painted eyes that stared blankly forward. I didn't move. Neither did he. Then he laughed. I don't know how to describe the sound that came out of that mask. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even aggressive. It was soft. Playful. Like the chuckle of a child playing hide and seek in the dark, except the child was 30 feet tall, and wearing your father's face skinned over bone. I raised my flashlight. "Who are you?" I asked. He didn't answer. I stepped forward. 1 foot. Then 2. He didn't flinch. "Are you the one who followed Nathan Grant?" At that, the figure tilted his head. The laugh came again, longer this time. And something behind me whispered. I turned fast, gun drawn, but there was nothing there. Just shadows. Dust. My own heartbeat hammering in my ears. When I turned back, the figure was gone. That's when the bells started. There were no bells in the church when I first visited. No tower. No rope. But now, somewhere deep below my feet, I heard them, low and tolling, like funeral chimes submerged in water. Every ring echoed up through the stone floor, vibrating in my teeth. And then I saw it. Not the figure. The door. The one that shouldn't exist. It was behind the altar, a circular hatch of heavy wood sunk into the floor, surrounded by faded chalk sigils and old chains. The padlock was broken. The air leaking from the cracks was warm. Wet. And it smelled like rot and pine tar. There was no logical reason to open it. So of course I opened it. The tunnel beneath the chapel was narrow, just wide enough for a man to crawl. The walls were dirt packed with roots and bones. Human bones, skulls stacked like bricks, femurs jammed between tree roots. Someone had built this tunnel from the dead. I crawled until I could barely breathe. Then the tunnel opened up. A chamber, natural, maybe, or carved with claws. The ceiling dripped black resin, and the floor was covered in carvings, all of them showing the same thing, a grinning figure beneath a pine tree, surrounded by people with hollow eyes. In the center of the chamber stood a stone well. It pulsed. Light spilled from within, flickering like fire but green and cold. I crept closer, peered over the edge. It wasn't a well. It was a hole. An abyss carved into the earth, so deep the light couldn't reach the bottom. And something inside it was moving. I didn't see it, but I felt it. Like eyes opening one by one beneath the surface, watching me, weighing me, judging whether I was a guest or a sacrifice. Then I heard it again. Laughter. But this time it came from inside my own mind. I don't remember leaving the tunnel. I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying outside the chapel, dirt under my nails, blood on my shirt. The sun was rising. The woods were silent. My shoulder-mounted lantern was gone, but my body cam was still rolling. I checked the footage. The footage ended when I reached the well. Everything after that? Just static. And the sound of someone breathing into the microphone. Not me. Too deep. Too wet. Like lungs filled with soil. Back at my motel, I made a call. Not to Laura Grant. Not yet. First, I needed to find someone who'd heard of Ren Hollow before. Someone who could tell me what was buried beneath those woods and why the townspeople sealed it away. I posted in every forum I knew, folklore hunters, cryptid boards, backwoods occult groups. One reply. A single message. From a user named GrinningMan47. It read, "You open the door. He walks now. You better run, Rook. He's already behind you." I turned slowly. The motel room was empty. But something had left muddy footprints on the carpet behind me. Barefoot. Large. With toes too long. Part 3. The Hollowing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the motel bathtub, door bolted, pistol across my lap, a salt line poured thick along the doorframe. I don't even believe in that crap, not really. But something about what I saw in that well had stripped the logic from my bones. Made me remember fear in a primal, ancestral way. Not fear of dying. Fear of being hollowed out. I kept checking the cam footage again and again, frame by frame. It always ended the same way, static, then a single image spliced in, too quick to catch unless you slowed it down. It was a photo. Old. Sepia-toned. A church burning in the distance. People in burlap robes standing in a circle around it. One of them holding up a wooden mask. Long, grinning, inhuman. The same mask I saw in the chapel. Below the photo was a handwritten scrawl. "We fed him so he wouldn't take the whole town." I needed answers. So I went back to the gas station where Nathan made his last call. It was the only sign of life near Ren Hollow. Half storefront, half taxidermy exhibit, run by an old man with skin like tree bark and a voice like gravel soaked in gasoline. He looked me up and down, eyes resting on the mud still crusted into the tread of my boots. "You been up Hollow Way?" he asked, not looking surprised. "Investigating a missing hiker," I said. "Nathan Grant." The old man's eyes flicked past me. Not paranoid. Afraid. "Nathan's not the first to disappear in those woods," he said, lighting a cigarette with a shaking hand. "And you won't be the last. But you might be the first to walk out after opening his door." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer with words. He handed me a binder wrapped in a plastic garbage bag. On the front, Ren Hollow, 1976. Do not destroy. The binder was filled with newspaper clippings, yellowed and brittle. I read them all that night at the motel, armed and wide-eyed. The story they told chilled me deeper than the laughing man's breath ever could. Ren Hollow had been sacrificing people for over a century. Once a generation, someone was taken into the woods and left at the chapel door. Always someone nobody would miss. A drifter. A criminal. A kid too slow to run. Why? Because of him. They called it the hollowing. A cleansing, they said. A thinning of the soul. It started with dreams, deep woods, teeth in the trees, whispers beneath your bed. Then came the laughter. At first distant, then closer. Until the night you woke up and he was smiling through your window, mask dripping sap, arms wide open like a mockery of salvation. If you heard him laughing inside your house, it was too late. You were already hollowed out. Your soul pulled through your teeth. Your body left to walk back to the chapel on its own. In 1976, the townspeople tried to stop it. They burned the chapel, poured salt in the well, hung the masked elders from the trees. It didn't work. 3 weeks later, the entire town vanished. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just empty homes and red laughter echoing through the mountains. I finished the binder and stared at the motel mirror for what felt like hours. My reflection looked normal, but my eyes didn't. There was something behind them. Something grinning. That was 2 nights ago. Since then, I've moved motels twice. I don't sleep. I don't eat much. My appetite's gone. Something's rotting in my stomach. I keep thinking about Nathan's journal. About the figure in the chapel. About that well that wasn't a well. And every night, no matter where I stay, I hear the laughter. Sometimes outside. Sometimes in the room. Last night, I found a pine needle on my pillow. There are no trees anywhere near this place. I called Laura. She didn't answer. Instead, I got a text a few minutes later. "Who is this?" I texted back, "Gideon Rook. I'm the investigator you hired. We spoke last week." Then, after 5 minutes, "This isn't funny. My sister's been dead for 12 years. Stop messaging me." That's when I realized something was rewriting things. Erasing the people who had touched the truth. Laura. Nathan. The whole town. Ren Hollow wasn't abandoned. It was consumed. The few records that existed were fragmentary at best. Clippings, whispers, archived anomalies on forums no one moderates anymore. But the deeper I looked, the more I found traces of similar stories. 1932, Wisconsin. The Man in the Rafters. 1959, West Virginia. The Tree That Whispered Names. 2004, British Columbia. The laughter in the mines. Always the same pattern. Always a door that should not be opened. Always the grinning man. Tonight, I tried to record myself sleeping. Just to see. The camera was full of static by morning. But one frame at the end was clear. It showed me sleeping. And something crouched above me on the headboard. Long limbs. A wooden mask. Two black hands reaching down toward my mouth, as if trying to open it wider. And even in still frame, I could hear the laugh. I could feel it. Like my spine was being pulled upward through my skull. I'm writing this now with the lights on. But the power keeps flickering. The window behind me has been fogging up from the outside. And just now, just as I typed that last sentence, I heard a knock. Not on the door. On the mirror. Part 4. The Hollow Man Comes Home. They always said you could smell him before you saw him. A mixture of pine sap and rot. Like fresh forest clinging to something very, very dead. It's in my nose now, clotted behind my eyes. I can't shake it. I've showered. Scrubbed. Poured bleach into my sinuses. Nothing helps. The Hollow Man is close. I'm losing time. It started yesterday. Or what I think was yesterday. I blinked, and the clock jumped forward 3 hours. No phone call. No food eaten. Just the sun hanging lower in the sky and a fresh pine needle in my boot. I started recording every second I was awake. Mounted a GoPro to my chest and kept my camcorder pointed at my reflection. That's how I found the tape. It was on my bed, wrapped in bark like a gift. No markings. Just a faint imprint of teeth on the wood. Like something had chewed it open before dropping it all. I didn't want to play it. I knew it was bait. But I did it anyway. The screen lit up with static, then slowly pulled into focus. A home video, timestamped June 8, 1992. A little girl's birthday party. I watched as she danced around a cake, blowing out candles, flanked by laughing parents and friends. Then the camera zoomed out, and I saw him. In the tree line. Just behind the wooden fence. Still. Smiling. Arms too long, head tilted in that awful, unnatural way. Everyone else kept moving, singing, laughing. No one noticed. Except the girl. Her face dropped. She stared at him. Then she smiled back. Not like a child smiles. Like a mask smiles. The video glitched. Cut to black. Then white text crawled across the screen. You let him out. Now he's in. I drove back to Ren Hollow that night. I don't know why. Call it unfinished business. Call it guilt. Maybe I just wanted to see the chapel again before it vanished like everything else. Before I vanished. But when I got there, the woods weren't the same. They had grown. What was once a mile's hike into the hollow now took me 3 hours, winding through new trails that hadn't existed before. The trees loomed taller, trunks wide as cars, their bark split and black-veined like they were bleeding from the inside. And they were laughing. Not loud. Just under the breath. Rustling leaves, whispering chuckles, like every pine needle was telling a joke to the one beside it. When I broke through the final stretch, the town was waiting. But it wasn't ruins anymore. Ren Hollow had been rebuilt. Not by man. By memory. The building stood tall again, wood clean, windows intact, doors wide open and breathing steam into the cool night. The chapel gleamed like obsidian under the moonlight, and smoke coiled from its steeple. I walked the streets in a daze. The town was lit, but there were no power lines, no flames. Just this strange, green light pulsing from within the ground, glowing through the cracks like the earth itself was hosting a seance. Then I heard the bells. Low, long, and wrong, like they were ringing underwater. I turned, and he was there. He didn't speak. He never does. The hollow man stood in the center of town, arms outstretched, fingers twitching as if pulling invisible strings. His mask had changed. Wider now. The smile more human. Mockingly human. Behind him, the chapel doors groaned open, and the congregation stepped out. I can't describe them. Not really. They looked almost like people, but stretched, warped. Their limbs too thin, jaws too loose, like puppets half melted by fire. Each of them wore a different mask, animal, saint, demon, child. But their eyes were hollow. Like someone had scooped them out and filled the sockets with echoes. And every single one was laughing. One figure broke from the crowd. Smaller. Familiar. Nathan. But not Nathan. His face was a waxy mask of himself, frozen in the moment he died, lips twisted, one eye drifting off center. His arms twitched with every step, like he wasn't moving of his own will. He looked at me and spoke without opening his mouth. There is no end, Gideon. Only openings. He raised his hand and pointed to the chapel. I turned, and the door began to breathe. The inside of the chapel had changed. No pews. No altar. Just stairs, spiraling downward into impossible dark. I should have run. I almost did. But then I heard her voice. Laura. Calling my name. Weak. Distant. Like she was underwater. I took a step down. Then another. Each stair groaned beneath me like it hadn't been touched in centuries. And as I descended, the air changed, thicker, hotter, the walls pulsing like veins. At the bottom was a door, carved from bone. I pushed it open. Inside was nothing. No light. No sound. Just a void, stretching in every direction. And in the center, hanging in midair, a mirror, cracked. I stepped forward, peered into it, and saw myself, not as I am, but as I was, before this, before the hollow. Then the reflection smiled. Not me. It. The thing wearing my face. Behind me, laughter. Louder now. Right behind my ears. The last thing I remember was the mirror shattering. And then I woke up here. I don't know where here is. It's a motel, I think. But the sky hasn't changed in hours. The clocks are stuck at 3:33. And every window shows the same stretch of pine forest, no matter which side of the building it's on. I found a note under my pillow this morning. In my own handwriting. You're almost ready. One more door. Then we let him in. I don't remember writing it. But I believe it. Something's growing inside me. Not a voice. A hunger. Sometimes I laugh. and I don't know why. Sometimes I see people on the street and wonder how they'd look hollowed out. This isn't me, but it's becoming me. And I think that was the point all along. Part 5: The Grinning Door. I don't know how long I've been here. The clocks are still broken. The pine trees don't move. And I haven't seen my reflection in 3 days. Not really. The mirror in the motel bathroom still shows something, but it twitches when I don't. Smiles when I frown. Blinks too slowly. And now, I think it's watching me more than I'm watching it. This morning, the fog rolled in. Thick yellow-gray. Clings to the windows like wet skin. Something's in it. I can hear it breathing. Not outside. Inside the walls. I tried to leave. Packed my bag, grabbed my gun, bolted out the front door. Every street led back to the motel. Even when I drove. It's like the road wraps around itself, curving tighter and tighter, until it strangles the horizon into nothing but needles and grins. No matter how far I go, I come back here. To the room with the flickering light. To the window that shows too many trees. To the laughter under the bed. I found another tape. This one was in the ice bucket. Wrapped in sinew. When I played it, the screen showed static at first. Then something shifted. A home movie. Black and white, jittering film. A boy. Maybe 10. Sitting in a church pew crying. Behind him, a figure looms. The Hollow Man. Wearing a mask made from bark and bone. Antlers tied to the crown, dripping sap like blood. He reaches down. Places a hand on the boy's head. And the boy stops crying. Stops moving. Smiles. Too wide. Then his jaw unhinges. And a second laugh spills out, deep, choking, like a different person using his mouth. Text crawls across the screen again. The first Hollowed sang for 7 nights. You'll sing longer. I smashed the screen. It didn't stop the laughter. It just changed pitch. That night, I dreamed of the chapel again. Only this time, I wasn't a visitor. I was the sermon. I stood at the altar, mouth sewn shut, arms spread wide. The pews were filled with people I knew, Laura, Nathan, my mother, old clients, faces I'd long buried. Each one wearing a mask. Each one silent. And behind them stood the Hollow Man. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. But every single person turned their heads in perfect unison, creaking like rotted hinges. And they laughed. Their mouths didn't move. But the sound poured out of them. Thick. Wet. Like something gurgling up from their throats. When I woke up, I was standing. Not in bed. In front of the mirror. Holding a mask made from my own face. That's when I understood. There's no escape. Not from Ren Hollow. Not from the Hollow Man. Not from myself. He doesn't follow you. He grows inside you. Every fear. Every secret. Every quiet chuckle you've swallowed down to stay sane. That's him. Feeding. Becoming. I finally opened the last door tonight. It was behind the motel mini fridge. A gap in the drywall. Just wide enough to crawl through. It wasn't there before. But it had been waiting. Inside, a tunnel. Familiar. Packed dirt. Skulls grinning from between tree roots. That same smell of pine and meat. It curved down, deeper, past sense and memory. I followed it. With every step, the light dimmed. The laughter rose. Like I was descending into the hollow of the earth itself, into his chest. At the bottom, a room. Circular. Lined with mirrors. And in the center? Myself. Or what I used to be. Tied to a chair. Eyes gouged. Mouth stretched into a permanent, rictus grin. A pine branch twisted through my chest like a new spine. And all around the room, the mirrors laughed. Not reflections. Each one was a version of me. Some screaming. Some smiling. Some banging their fists against the glass, blood smearing their palms. And all of them wore the mask. I took the gun from my belt. Put it to my reflection's head. One version begged. One version wept. One version opened its mouth wider than any human should be able to. I pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The gun melted into my hand, turned to bark and sap. And the hollow man stepped from the shadows. He leaned close, mouth by my ear. And finally he spoke. "There is no end, Gideon. Only openings." Then he pushed me. Not backward. Inward. I'm not in the motel anymore. I'm in you. I see through your eyes when you blink too long. I whisper between your heartbeats. I am the reflection that doesn't look away when you do. I'm in the echo that sounds like laughter. I'm the thing in the mirror, waiting for you to stop pretending you're still alone. Because you opened the door too, didn't you? You read too far. You wanted to know. And now, we know you back. Laughing in the Dark. Part 1. The Man Beneath Black Pines. The pines on the mountain had a strange way of swallowing sound. You could stand between their towering trunks, listen to the breeze rustle the needles high above, and still feel like you were listening through a vacuum. Everything muffled. Flattened. The way dreams sound just before you realize you're dreaming. It was exactly the kind of place I specialized in. My name's Gideon Rook. Ex-military, now an investigator. Most of the time I'm hired to find missing people. Sometimes I find them. Sometimes I don't. But lately, the things I've found haven't been people at all. This case started the same way the last dozen had, a desperate voicemail from a woman named Laura Grant. Her brother, Nathan, had gone missing in a place called Ren Hollow, an old forestry town in Oregon that hadn't existed on any official map in 30 years. "Please," she said on the recording. "He's all I have left." She told me Nathan was a solo backpacker. Traveled light, stayed off-grid. Always checked in, even when he didn't want to. 2 weeks ago, he called her from a payphone outside a gas station in Clatsop County, just north of Tillamook Forest. He never came back. Laura gave me everything she had: maps, journal scans, voicemail backups, and a photo of Nathan standing in front of his camper van, grinning like a man who hadn't been broken by the world yet. In the background, past the van, you could just make out the edge of a crooked wooden sign, "Welcome to Ren Hollow." Elevation 3,927 feet. The next day, I packed up and drove north. Ren Hollow wasn't on the map, but the forest road was. It twisted up the mountain in serpent coils, overgrown and cracked, the kind of path only loggers and park rangers would have bothered with. Somewhere around the third switchback, I passed a sign nailed to a splintered pine. Do not enter after dark. Below it, painted in dry red letters. He laughs when the sun goes down. Most signs like that are just the work of vandals or edgy campers trying to make TikToks. But the smell in the air changed the second I passed it, like rust and earth, mixed with something far more ancient. I found the remains of Ren Hollow after an hour of hiking on foot. A ring of crumbling buildings, roofs caved in, moss blanketing everything. One sign still swung lazily on rusted chains above what must have once been a town hall, founded 1886, Pop 312. The town was dead. It felt dead. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the church. At the far end of the hollow, tucked between two massive pine stumps, stood the only structure still whole. A chapel, stone-faced and sharp-edged, like it had grown there rather than been built. Its steeple rose like a blade into the darkening sky, and every window had been bricked over. Except the door. That stood wide open. I should have turned back. The sun was already dipping low, shadows stretching long and hungry between the trees. I'd seen enough missing persons cases go sideways to know the rules. Never get caught out after dark. Never go in alone. But Nathan's trail ended here. His journal had a final entry, scrawled and crooked like he'd written it in a rush. He watches me from the trees, laughing now. I think I've gone too far. I think the hollow still remembers what was buried beneath it. Inside the chapel, it was colder than it should have been. My boots echoed off the stone as I passed the pews, all warped and half-rotted. Dust hung in the air like breath that had nowhere to go. At the altar, something waited. It wasn't a cross. No crucifix. Just a statue carved from blackened wood, twisted and inhuman, but vaguely man-shaped. Too long. Too thin. Mouth carved open in a permanent grin that stretched from ear to ear. Its arms were raised, like it was welcoming something. Or someone. I took a step closer, and the air shifted. Not a breeze. Not a draft. It was a sound. Faint. Just at the edge of hearing. Laughter. I didn't sleep that night. I set up camp a mile outside the hollow, but every twig snap and distant wind gust sounded like breathing. Every tree silhouette looked like a figure with arms too long and legs too bent. At some point past midnight I saw the light. A faint glow, pulsing from the chapel like the heartbeat of something buried deep. I packed up and left before the sun had fully risen. I knew then that Ren Hollow wasn't just abandoned. It had been locked away. Forgotten for a reason. But I had a job to finish. And Nathan's trail wasn't cold yet. I found his van 2 days later. It was buried in ivy and pine needles, parked off a service road miles from the hollow. Inside, it smelled like mildew and rotting earth. But everything was still there. His backpack, sleeping bag, a notebook with fresh pages torn out, and a tape recorder. I pressed play. At first, it was just wind. Trees. The creak of branches. Then a voice. Nathan's. I think I'm being followed. I haven't seen anything, but I hear it. Laughing. Always laughing. It gets louder at night. I found the church. The statue. It wasn't there before. Or maybe I didn't see it until now. Doesn't matter. It's watching me. I don't think I'll make it out. Then silence. And after that, Laughter. Not human. Not really. Too hollow. Too big. Like it was coming from inside the tape recorder, but also from the trees outside, and from somewhere deep underground. I played the tape 3 times, each time hoping it would sound different. It never did. The trail ends here for now. But the story doesn't. Whatever happened to Nathan in Ren Hollow, it's not finished. Not yet. And I've got a feeling the thing in that church, the laughing man, it's only just starting to wake up. I'll go back tomorrow. This time, after dark. Whatever waits in the hollow, I'm not leaving until I understand what it is. Even if I don't make it back.